Towards the close of which there appeared an image of himself grown older and sadder, standing in a moonlight garden with a Mercedes who had so many years before slighted his love, and with a sadly proud gesture of refusal, saying, "Madam, I never eat muscadel grapes." He became the ally of a boy named Aubrey Mills and founded with him a gang of adventurers in an avenue. Aubrey carried a whistle dangling from his buttonhole and a bicycle lamp attached to his belt, while the others had short sticks thrust daggers through theirs. Stephen, who had a riff of Napoleon Plain's style of dress, chose to remain unadorned, and Derby heightened for himself the pleasure of taking counsel with his lieutenant before giving orders. The gang made forays into the gardens of old maids, or went down to the castle and fought a battle on the shaggy, weed-grown rocks. Coming home after its weary struggles with the estate odors of the foreshore in their nostrils and the rank oils of the sea-wrack up in their hands and in their hair. Aubrey and Stephen had a common milkman, and often they drove out in a milk car to Carrickmines where the cows were at grass. While the men were milking, the boys would take turns in riding the trackable mare round the field. But when autumn came, the cows were driven home from the grass, and the first sight of the filthy cowyard at Stradbroke with its full green puddles and the clods of liquid dung and steaming brown towels sickened Stephen's heart. The cattle, which had seemed so beautiful in the country on sunny days, revolted him, and he could not even look at the milk they yielded. The coming of the September did not trouble him this year, for he was not to be sent back to Clongowes. The practice in the park came to an end with Mike Flynn went into hospital. Aubrey was at school and had only an hour or two free in the evening. The gang fell asunder, and there were no more nightly forays or breathless on the rocks. Stephen sometimes went round with the car which delivered the evening milk, and his chilly drives blew away his memory of the field of the cowyard, and he felt no repugnance at seeing the cowherds and hayseed on the milkman's coat. Whenever the car drove up before a house, he waited to catch a glimpse of a wall-scrubbed kitchen or of a softly lighted hall, and to see how the servant would hold the jug and how she would close the door. He thought it should be a pleasant life enough driving along the roads every evening to deliver a milk, if he had warm gloves and fat bags of gingerbreads in his pocket to eat from. But the same foreknowledge which had sickened his heart and made his legs sag suddenly as he raced round the park, the same intuition which had made him glance with a mistrust at his trainer's flabby, stubble-covered face as it went heavily over his long, stained fingers, dissipated any vision of the future. In a vague way he understood that his father was in trouble, and that this was the reason why he himself had not been sent back to Clongowes. For some time he had felt a slight change in his house, and those changes in what he had deemed unchangeable were so many slight shocks to his boyish conception of the world. The ambition which he felt astir at times in the darkness of his soul sought no outlet. A dusk like that of the outer world absorbed his mind as he heard the mare's hoofs clattering along the tram track on the rock road and the great can swaying and rattling behind him. He returned to the Mercedes, and as he boarded upon her image, a strange unrest crept into his blood. Sometimes a fever gathered within him and led him to row alone in the evening along the quiet avenue. The peace of the gardens and the kindly lights in the window poured a tender influence into his restless heart. The noise of children at play annoyed him, and their silly voices made him feel even more keenly than he had felt at Clongowes, that he was different from others. He did not know where to seek it, or how, but a premonition which led him and told him that this image would, without any overt act of his, encounter him. They would meet quietly as if they had known each other and had made their tryst perhaps at one of the gates or in some memory made at a secret place. They would be alone, surrounded by darkness and silence, and in a moment of the supreme tenderness he would be transfigured. He would fade into something impalpable under her eyes, and then in a moment he would be transfigured. Weakness and timidity and inexperience would fall from him at that magic moment. Two great yellow caravans had halted one morning before the door, and man had come tramping into the house to dismantle it. The furniture had been hustled out through the front garden, which was strewn with the whips of straws and ribbons, into the huge ones at the gate. When all had been safely stowed, the vans had set off noisily down the avenue, and from the window of the railway carriage, in which he had sat with his red-eyed mother, Stephen had seen them lumbering along the Marion Road. The parlour fire would not draw that evening, and Mr. Dedalus rested the poker against the bars of the grate to attract the flame. Uncle Charles dozed in the corner of the half-furnished, uncarpeted room, and near him the family portraits leaned against the wall. The lamp on the table shed a weak light over the boarded floor, muddied by the feet of the vanman. Stephen sat on a footstool beside his father, listening to a long and incoherent monologue. He understood little or nothing of it at first, but he became slowly aware that his father had enemies and that some fight was going to take place. This video is taken for Navid Daria's page.